It was a quiet Tuesday morning when Bethanne Whitmore made a $500,000 mistake. A mistake that would cost her everything: her career, her reputation, and her freedom. It all started with her pearl-white Escalade parked sideways across my ranch gate, blocking my cattle from getting home. Bethanne, the newly elected president of the Willowbrook Estates, stood there in designer workout gear, phone recording, a smug look on her face. She told me the gate was now HOA property and that I was no longer allowed through. She looked me right in the eye and said I was trespassing on private land. This was land my family had owned for 3 generations. She even threatened to call the sheriff if I dared to touch her car. She thought she was bullying some simple rancher who didn't know his rights, but she had no idea who she was messing with. My name is Garrett Sullivan, and I'm what you might call an endangered species. I am a 3rd-generation cattle rancher trying to make it work in 2024 on 340 acres of prime Texas hill country. My granddad carved this land out of cedar and limestone back when this was all mesquite and wild hogs. 2 years ago, I lost my wife, Sarah, to cancer. Now it's just me and my 17-year-old daughter, Emma, trying to keep this ranch going. To pay the bills, I also work as a federal agricultural inspector for the USDA. It's not glamorous, but it keeps the ranch afloat. The real trouble started when our old south pasture was sold to developers and turned into Willowbrook Estates. The original developer was a decent guy. He respected our 1952 easement road, the legal right-of-way that lets us get to our back pastures. But then, Bethanne Whitmore moved in. She got herself elected HOA President faster than a summer thunderstorm, promising to protect property values. That was just corporate speak for making life miserable for everyone around her. She filed noise violations because my roosters crowed at dawn. She demanded I replace my century-old split-rail fence because it didn't meet her visual standards. But the real war was always about that road. Bethanne discovered our legal easement and decided it just shouldn't exist anymore. She started having residents park their cars near my gate, turning it into an obstacle course for my cattle trailers. On that Tuesday morning, when she blocked me with her Escalade, I had $40,000 worth of Black Angus breeding stock in my trailer. These weren't just animals. Wet AMIs. College fund. They were our ranch's future. Because of her blockade, I had to take a 12-mile detour on the highway. The stress and heat were too much for some of the calves. 2 of them developed shipping fever. That cost me $3,000 in vet bills I couldn't afford. But Bethanne was just getting started. She launched a formal offensive, filing a complaint that my easement was fraudulent. She demanded I pay $4,500 for a new survey to prove my rights. So, I spent a morning at the county clerk's office, photographing every single document related to our land, all the way back to 1952. While she was busy rallying her Facebook group with posts about aggressive agricultural operations, I was digging into the fine print, and I found it. The original developer's agreement specifically promised to honor all existing easements forever. Bethanne had even convinced some elderly residents to sign a petition for a county-wide survey. What she didn't realize is that when you ask the county to survey everything, they survey asterisk. The county surveyor eventually sat us down in his office. He pointed to a map and then to a massive problem Bethanne had created for herself. The HOA's expensive stone pillars and entrance. Her pride and joy were built 3 feet onto county property. She was the one trespassing on public land. It cost the HOA $15,000 in survey fees and another $20,000 to move their grand entrance, all because she tried to prove I was the one breaking the law. You'd think that would be the end of it, but instead of taking responsibility, she doubled down. She accused me of manipulating the residents and intensified her harassment. She had animal control and zoning officers at my ranch almost daily. Every single inspector who visited confirmed my operation didn't just meet the standards, it exceeded them. But Bethanne wouldn't stop. That's when she tried to sabotage my career. She sent a vicious letter to my federal supervisor. She accused me of using my government position to intimidate her and even manufactured fake witness statements to back up her lies. In the federal government, an accusation like that triggers an automatic ethics review. My supervisor, Janet, knew the accusations were ridiculous, but we had to follow procedure. She realized that to check for any conflict of interest, we had to look into any and all federal projects connected to Willowbrook Estates, and that's when we hit the jackpot. We discovered the HOA had received $340,000 in federal grants for flood mitigation and infrastructure, and the investigation quickly revealed that the money had been systematically misused. Funds meant for proper drainage systems had been spent on decorative fountains. Required native plants were replaced with expensive, thirsty palm trees that actually increased the flood risk. Bethanne had been filing false compliance reports to the federal government for years, claiming work was finished when it hadn't even started. The moment she realized federal agents were on her precious property, taking soil samples, she went into a full-blown panic. She hired contractors to rip out the palm trees overnight, literally trying to bury the evidence of her non-compliance. My own security cameras caught her on video at 3 a.m., screaming at workers to go faster. She even tried to file a fake insurance claim for storm damage to cover the cost of her emergency landscaping. The end finally came at a public town hall meeting. Bethanne walked in, ready to complain about federal bullying, but instead of a sympathetic audience, she was met by FBI agents and federal marshals. The prosecutor stood up and began reading a list of 47 federal charges, including grant fraud, environmental violations, and obstruction of justice. Her husband, Carl, tried to slip out the back, but agents were waiting for him. Bethanne was arrested right there, on live television. Her designer blazer and perfect makeup couldn't hide the absolute terror on her face. In the end, she was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $400,000 in restitution. The judge even noted that her systematic harassment of a federal employee had actually documented her own consciousness of guilt. Her assets, her husband's accounts, everything was scrutinized to recover the stolen federal funds. The HOA was reformed. The drainage was finally fixed properly, and funnily enough, property values actually went up once the corruption was gone. Now, the ranch is quiet again. The morning steam rises from my coffee cup, and the only sound is the lowing of cattle. Our legacy is now protected by a permanent federal marker at my gate. Some people try to dig a hole to bury their neighbors, but they often forget they're the ones who will eventually fall in. Justice was served, and my family's ranch is safe for the next generation. Thanks for listening to my story. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. We'll see you next time.